Okay, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Millennial Trade. So let's sit and hang out for a little while, maybe like 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour. I've taken a lot of notes. I actually have some notes, things that I want to talk about. I've been getting a lot of requests, like topic requests. Some people are asking me to talk about specific stocks, and that is an interesting idea. I'm not really the type of guy that is interested in all these specific numbers and stuff on the balance sheets. I kind of listen to other people talk about it, and I just sort of figured it out for myself that way. So my stock process is a little bit unprofessional as far as like picking stocks and stuff. I'll admit that. So I'm a little intimidated to start talking about that, but I could do like daily SoFi updates, stuff like that, or Tattooed Chef, right? Stocks that I'm interested in. We could talk about the big mega cap stocks, but it's like so many other people out there cover that much better than I do. And I'm interested in the macroeconomics and how it relates to politics, and how the politics could potentially become the policies. That kind of stuff interests me a lot. Another topic request that I've been getting is this whole situation with the blockades in Haiti. So we are going to talk about that. There's a lot of stuff going on in Haiti that the mainstream media is just completely ignoring. So we're not getting much information out about it, but the little information that I was able to obtain online, it's from like the Miami Herald, and you need a subscription to read it. So it's like sometimes you're only looking at the headlines. And a lot of the times that's how I read news too, is I'm just looking at headlines. Maybe I'll go a little bit deeper if it really catches me, or if somebody else recommends the article. But I'm not a big reader, right? I'm just not a big reader, but even so, I'm able to do some research and try to figure some things out. So one of the guys on YouTube that I listen to a lot is the Uneducated Economist. He's a guy, I think he works in a lumber yard, he sells wood, sells lumber. So he's in that industry, and he makes these videos in his car, and they're economic videos. He reads a lot, and you can tell this guy has done research for like 10 years on all this kind of stuff. But he's the guy that kind of got me out of this mindset that, we got to end the Fed, or that the Fed doesn't know what they're doing. All this kind of rhetoric. I've definitely fallen under that mindset before. And so the Uneducated Economist has some different views on this, and it's kind of gotten me thinking a little bit more, because if you think about it, right, if we end the Fed and some other central bank, throughout the world takes over and creates, a dominant money supply. I mean, what's the alternative besides the Fed, right? I guess we could barter. I guess we could trade silver and gold. But there's a history to all of this, and a lot of this stuff didn't work because, like for instance, in England in the 1600s, a lot of the coinage was either chipped off, they would shave it, or they would send it overseas. And so, a couple of times England, the King of England, was almost pretty much bankrupt. And so paper money and these kind of ideas started coming out in the late 1600s, 1700s, 1800s during the Revolutionary War here in the United States. There was a shortage of coinage because people hoard it, right? The coins, when you distribute them and you put them out there, people start hoarding them. So the idea that we're going to end the Fed, or that the Fed is bad necessarily, or that the Fed doesn't know what they're doing, or that the Fed has lost control, these kind of ideas I start to question, because I've been listening to the Uneducated Economist. That was really where I kind of was like, maybe the Fed isn't that bad, because the alternative to the Fed, we don't know what it is. And you got to understand too, the Fed is backed up pretty much by the military, right? And so our country's in a pretty good position, right? I mean, what is the alternative if you end the Fed, if you end the military industrial complex? What, China rules the world, Russia rules the world? So the argument it gets kind of complicated when you think about it. And this even goes into like when Trump is critical of how the United States is the world police. He's said this several times that we shouldn't play world police. For instance, in Ukraine, right? Trump has expressed opposition to all the support in Ukraine, but we're going to talk about Zelensky as well. This guy uploads to Instagram, I swear, like 20 times a day. So, and he did an English video, a video in English, basically thanking Europe and the United States for their support. But Zelensky had an interesting point, and he says that, and I'm not a big fan of Zelensky, right? I think Ukraine is, from what I know, it's very corrupt, but they do provide a lot of food, right? It's a breadbasket. And so Zelensky on Instagram, like just a couple hours ago, I saw this. He said that the support of Ukraine politically, financially, militarily, it's in the global, the world's interest because Ukraine provides so much food, right? I think he used the term global. Ukraine is saving Ukraine or protecting Ukraine is beneficial for global food security. That's what he said, essentially, right? And it's an interesting point. If, we know that Ukraine provides a lot of food. And I think this is why Russia is letting maybe some of the exports, leave and be delivered, because probably some of Russia's allies buy grain from the Ukraine as well. So, a lot of interesting stuff that we're going to talk about. But going back to the Fed and the dollar, there's also this idea that the dollar's losing value, right? That it's going to crash. And that's actually hasn't been true for the past few months, maybe a year. The dollar has surged. It was looking sketchy, like, during COVID and stuff. There was some weakness there, but the dollar is surging. It is the most powerful and dominant, currency, in the entire world, against Europe, against China, against Japan. And there's a lot, like the whole currency thing. I haven't talked a lot about currencies on my channel. There's so much out there to pay attention to, but people are trading currencies, and currencies are, you got to think about it like ratios. It's like with trading, the stock versus the dollar, or you could look at gold versus the S&P 500. All of this stuff it's just about ratios. And the truth is that if the dollar is going to completely collapse, if you look at a chart, like at a stock chart, a Bitcoin chart, look at bond charts, the yields, the prices, and again, that's a ratio too, like yield versus the price of the asset. Well, when you look at all of this, all right, if the dollar were to completely collapse, you would think we'd need a big spike. Look at all these different charts. Everything I just mentioned. There's always a huge spike, a huge surge, and then the crash. Why would it be any different for the dollar? So the idea that the dollar is going to die anytime soon, for all we know, the dollar could be so powerful, and the United States is so powerful that it's here for hundreds of years. Right? I'm not saying the dollar is going to last forever, 1,000 years, but for the next 100 years, for the next couple hundred years, the Federal Reserve and the United States government, and the military, and the taxpayer base and the people, this is an institution that was essentially founded by God, if we're going to get into the esoteric and the spiritual. I think the United States and the dollar and the Federal Reserve, they're so powerful. They're going to be here for a long time, probably for the rest of our lives. Where, all this talk about the crash and everything, I don't know if I believe it anymore. I really do not know if I believe it anymore. And there's a lot of fear out there too, right? People are afraid of the future. In some aspects, I guess I'm nervous about, some of the technology and stuff like that. But, if we talk about cryptocurrencies, digital assets, is the Fed going in that direction? Someday, I think so. But they're going to, like Trump wanted negative interest rates. And the Fed eventually, I think the end game, if they're going to go cashless, would probably be negative interest rates, because when you look into this, you'd basically have to pay money to keep money in there or deposit money in there. And, very quickly, probably within, less than a decade, they could get most of the cash out of the system and put everything on kind of a digital ledger. And I think that's the Fed's eventual game. And a lot of people want to see stuff like this happen, right? Not only with the Fed and the central banks having a ledger, but with Bitcoin, Ethereum, something that's not centralized. This is the whole point. It's like a decentralized global currency. And then you get into the ideas of tokenization, everything becoming like commodified on this online ledger, right? This decentralized ledger that everybody can see. Every transaction, every trade, everything would be on this. Even stocks would get tokenized, and you'd be trading even more of a derivative. Like if you think options is a derivative, wait until the whole stock market becomes part of this this ledger. I'm having trouble articulating my ideas completely, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from. So there's a lot of fear there, but the bulls, right? The crypto bulls, the what's that other word? Not crypto. I'm drawing a blank right now, but blockchain technology. People are very bullish on this kind of thing. And you don't have to understand it completely to grasp some of the concepts, but the bulls think that if we can just implement this technology and get everybody to use it and get the entire world on board, that it will decentralize the power of the monetary supply, but also it'll provide so much abundance. If you tokenize everything, people can basically just collect, not dividends, but have coins that are being borrowed, and then you're making interest on that. And so all this abundance, right, the online through the ledger, the blockchain technology, that's what the bulls believe in, right? But at the same time, you got to consider, let's say a central bank controls this, right? Ultimately controls the ledger, but it still provides, abundance, but there's so much power there. And let's say one of the negative effects of this technology is that if the government says that you're out of line or that you're talking out of turn, right, they can just cut you off from the system, right? That's kind of a scary aspect to this. So it got me thinking, right? I've been thinking a lot about this kind of thing the last couple of weeks now, and it's like, would a society trade their freedoms for more abundance, more monetary gain? Has that ever happened before? I don't know. I'd really have to look into that. But when you look into the history of paper money, like in France, how paper money got started there, it lifted the entire society up out of poverty because these coins were being hoarded or they were being sent overseas. And so France had no money. They had nothing to no medium of exchange. That's the whole point of having money. It's just a medium of exchange. It's not actually the wealth. The wealth is, your food, your luxuries, your, maybe your assets and stuff. But the money itself is just the medium of exchange. So France didn't have any of that, and then they, this sketchy kind of banker, gambler guy, I forgot his name, but he, he came in and he was exiled from England. He was basically a felon throughout Europe, but he came to France and started the paper money system, and it actually it helped the entire nation. So I think in the same way, a lot of people see blockchain technology like this. Remember when I was talking about the silver, I think it's called like the silver fiasco or the silver threat back in the early 1800s or late 1800s, like 1870 to 1900. There was this whole idea that we should put free silver out there. And the silver bugs back then were pro-inflation because they knew that was part of their argument, is that we need inflation. And if we put all this free silver, it was called the free silver movement. You can look this up on Wikipedia. It's very interesting. But they were pro-inflation, because they knew if the government gave out free silver, it would inflate the monetary supply. this is how they used to inflate the monetary supply, putting more coinage out there or more paper out there, which is what they do now. So there's a history here. And with inflation, the idea that we're not going to have inflation or that inflation needs to go away or that we can get rid of it, I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. The argument was won 100 years ago, if not more. And it's just kind of, the more society grows, the inflation's gonna grow as well. But there's also peaks and valleys with this. Like when you look at a stock chart and you see the peak and then a little pullback and then it comes up again and goes further. That's why I'm not too excited about the interest rate or the inflation rate on the CPI report coming down just a little bit. It wasn't even coming down. We're still going up. It's just the rate isn't as fast. It's not as fast a pace as last month, but we're still higher. We're still going higher. And so if the rate, let's say the rate comes down to 7.7 like it did, the inflation rate, right? Or maybe it comes down to 7.5 year over year. Maybe it comes down to 6 year over year, right? What if that's just the pullback of the inflation rate and then the inflation starts surging again? These are definitely possibilities. You have to kind of be open to the downside or the upside. When we talk about the rates, all right, I might just be a little obsessed with some of this stuff, but when we talk about the rates esoterically, okay, they're now calling for a 6% interest rate. Okay, so think about this, right? I'm going to move back just a little bit. I feel a little too close to the camera. Yeah, this is better. This is a better view, right? Okay, actually, I'm getting too comfortable on this thing. We acting unprofessional. Here, I'm going to move this down just a little bit. But no, you guys are going to enjoy this topic here. If you're enjoying the topics already, you're going to enjoy this. So, and I hope you like the background. I was just there this morning. I didn't run, but I was walking, just looking at the ocean. It clears my mind. It helps me talk better. Like when I go out to the ocean and just see like the infinite, I don't know. It helps my mind, if that makes sense. Esoterically, why do they want to take us to a 6% interest rate? Why is that what's being called for now? Right? First it was like 4.5, then it was 5, then it was 5.5. Well, now they're calling for a 6% interest rate. Why 6? Well, why not 7? 6. So, is there an esoteric, thing to this? It's hard to say. It's hard to say, but don't think that it goes unnoticed by me. I see this all the time in the media. I look for it. I look for the symbols. I look for the number. Don't think that I don't see it. Even if I don't talk about it a lot, it's not getting by me at all. A lot of people talk about we should go back to the gold standard, and maybe for a few months I thought that was a good idea, right? Because all these, silver bugs and silver stackers, gold stackers are talking about this. And by the way, I love silver and gold, right? I'm going to go buy some next week. Because I promised myself in November I would start stacking again. So, I'm stacking gold and silver. But going back to a gold standard, that's the old world order. That is what the banking financier class, that's what they had years ago. Almost like what, 50 years ago, 60 years ago now or more. They're not going back to that. That's not what they want to do. That was kind of the old East Coast legacy banking, monetary policy was the gold standard. And it's ancient history now. It's never coming back, in my opinion. And the only way you could see maybe a gold standard coming back would be in probably, the government would the treasury. The treasury would issue bonds that could be paid back in gold, right? Like an ounce of gold, let's say. And so, maybe you could trade those federal notes. Maybe that could become like a form of paper currency, but It's a long shot. It's a real long shot on that one. So yeah, anyways, a complete dollar collapse, we're going to have to see a huge spike. And the thing, if we get a huge spike in the dollar, it's going to help us as Americans. We kind of want to see that, like, especially if it happens over decades, we kind of want to see that because it helps us. It does destroy economies, companies in other countries, unfortunately, right? And I think all of this, it fundamentally is a form of warfare. These currency trades, it's a form of warfare. I think, I don't want to get too weird right now, but Soros, he trades currencies, and I think he does it. There's political reasons why he does this, right? If you can short currencies and keep them low, you can, really devastate the society that you're doing this to. So that's something to consider. Right? Definitely something to consider. And with the dollar, you really think they're just going to let it collapse in our lifetime? Maybe, but I'm not going to bet on it. So yeah, let's move on a little bit here. I want to talk about this conspiracy theory about Wall Street. It's like more of a Wall Street, a financial conspiracy theory. And, Jeremy from the Financial Education Channel was talking about this. I filmed a couple clips on my Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Millennial Trades. We're already at 21 minutes. So this conspiracy theory basically is that because of the GameStop fiasco and all these retail traders coming in and really making a lot of money, stocks went up. Retail helped push some of these stocks up. And a lot of these hedge funds got completely burned and they were losing money. And so the idea is that Wall Street, and not only were they losing money, but they were being humiliated with memes on Wall Street bets. That class of people, the Wall Street class, they were in some ways completely humiliated, in 2021. So did they come back with a vengeance? Did they come back with the mindset that we're going to wreak havoc on this market? We're going to bring down the cryptos. We're going to bring down the mega caps. We're going to bring down all of the retail trader stocks. We're going to force these people to sell out. We're going to, hit those stop losses. Is that what happened? Is that a possibility? You look at the charts, man. It's like, everything. PayPal, that was a huge retail name. SoFi, Tattooed Chef, Neo, Chinese car company, Neo. So many of them. Workhorse, so many of these crap companies. But then you have the mega caps too. Apple, Google, Amazon. There were all these stock splits. Was this crash done on purpose? And then some people, it's possible that the Federal Reserve raising the interest rates, up to 6%, which is where I think they want to go, because I think there's an esoteric reason for it. But I think that, we're already at 4 or over 4 now. So the interest rates coming up is, maybe that's what hurts the market. It's possible. But then you got to think, well, who is in the ear of the Federal Reserve too? People on Wall Street, definitely not retail. So it's an interesting theory. I'm just looking at some of these names. Bitcoin and now FTX and Voyager. You remember the Voyager thing almost a year ago now? You got all these retail trade. Retail is gone. Look at Robinhood's users. I think they went from like 25, 30 million users in 2021, and now they have like 15 million, which is more than they had 3 years ago. They only had like 10 or 11 million users 3 or 4 years ago. But this is what happened when we talk about the dollar spiking up and then it's going to crash. Well, this is what happened with all the stocks. GameStop, AMC. They all popped and then crashed. But is the crash something that could have been manufactured, throughout the markets? Retail got devastated. I got devastated, but it was more because I kept trading calls. I kept thinking, oh, it's got to bounce here. PayPal's got to bounce here. It's at $100. It's got to bounce here. And it just never did. It just kept going down and down and down. And I lost a lot of money. I was stupid. I was just trying to do that same trade over and over again because it worked in 2021. And, So, yeah. it's crazy to think about, if Wall Street is that calculated and if they're that ruthless. They probably are, and we got to be too. But I think what Jeremy said in the video is maybe we should think twice about, making fun of Wall Street or trying to humiliate them or, pointing fingers, because they're okay with people, dollar cost averaging into stocks. They're okay probably with people trading stocks a little bit, but you got to remember it's a zero sum game. If I made 10 grand last week, which I did, somebody else lost 10 grand last week. So, it's something that's also something you have to be aware of. Was it just another retail trader? Was it Wall Street? I don't know. We'll never know. And that's the beauty of the market. They don't know who you are. They don't care who you are. Anybody can enter the market and do it. But it's, it's a lot harder. It's easier said than done. So yeah, the thing in Haiti, right? The blockades. This is the last thing I want to go over, because Russia, Ukraine, all of this stuff is important when it comes to the financial markets. Apparently in Haiti, they were trying to buy oil from Russia. And then the United States has sent a international force, probably like something from the UN, down to Haiti to blockade the Russian oil imports. And so there are like gangs. And Haiti's basically collapsed, right? They had that huge earthquake a few years ago. Hillary Clinton stole billions of dollars. Haiti collapsed after the Obama administration. That's the truth. And I'm not sure how much Trump really tried to help them either. But like these are people within our hemisphere, right? This is an island. This is a nation within our hemisphere that this kind of instability. It's just not good. It's not good for the United States. That's a lot of people down there that are going to be seeking refuge now. If this whole thing. So they don't have oil, they don't have enough water, they don't have enough food, and the United Nations is basically blockading Haiti from getting oil from Russia. I'm not sure why we're not selling oil to Haiti. There's a lot of political problems there, and the mainstream media doesn't cover it. Hardly any of the media covers it. That's why it's so hard to talk about. That's why it's so hard to get information about this. But somebody had let me know about this in the comment section. So that's why your comments are really appreciated, because I'm able to look at some other things or get some other ideas for my content. So always keep that in mind. If you're like thinking, I want to leave a comment, but because I'm like that too. I watch a video and like I want to leave a comment, but I don't want to look like common. I don't, So I get it, but it's like, or I'm just too shy, to leave the comment. I think that's a lot of us are just too shy to leave comments, right? But don't be shy. You can leave comments in my comment section. I'll heart them to let you know that I read them, and I'll try to respond to them if they're interesting enough. So, yeah, Haiti and the support for Ukraine, right? I mean, in some ways we should support Haiti because it's like we just don't need that instability, And I'm not sure how you would do that, but supporting Ukraine, is this just Khazarian propaganda when he says that, protecting Ukraine is essential for global food security? Maybe he really does have a point on that. But the thing is, Ukraine, from my understanding, the western half of Ukraine supports Zelensky, and a lot of people in the east basically support Russia. And there was another, they had another president, and Zelensky's like a celebrity. He was like a TV star in that part of the world. And, so again, it's like you have these celebrities come in that are backed by God knows who. And they, the interest, we just don't know exactly I don't know exactly what Zelensky's true agenda is. There just seems to be, before all of this went down, there just seems to be a lot of corruption in Ukraine. And it's hard to trust the information we're getting from Ukraine. And now, like, the entire world is, funneling millions and billions of dollars into Ukraine. How well is it accounted for? Is there any diversions? Should the American people support this? I mean, yes, it's for global food security, I understand, but should the American people pay for it? I just don't know. It's all very confusing. Geopolitics mixed with finance and economics. These are kind of like higher level ideas and thinking patterns that I'm trying to ascend to, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my take. I don't want to take up all of your day. So enjoy the rest of it. And thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Follow me on Instagram @MillennialTrades. Give it a thumbs up. I'll see you on the next video.